righty, sounds good. Good morning, everybody. Today is Wednesday, February 23rd, 2022. It's now 10:35. The meeting of the Dudley Economic Development Committee will come to order. We will start with the call to order and the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. All righty. So, well, thanks everybody for coming. First item on the agenda, and I know we've already had some brief introductions. We have a special guest with us today, Jill St. Clair. She's the chairperson of the Killingly, Connecticut Economic Development Commission. I have actually had the privilege of working with Jill. She, through my role at Hometown Bank and commercial lending, and I had on many occasions I had spoken with Jill. She's doing quite a number of amazing things with the town of Killingly. I mentioned to her, all the things that we are doing with the LRRP plan and some upcoming projects in the town with our Main Street corridor projects that are going to be going on, like the Stevens Mill project. So Jill was kind enough to come here, give us a little introduction about what she does with Killingly. She's actually already looked at some of the information that we have regarding our LRRP plan. So I asked her maybe to provide some feedback, some things that she's seen regarding the town, and we can maybe open up to questions afterwards. So Jill, if you'd like to come, and please welcome.
Thank you, and thank you for all those kind words. I hope I can live up to that expectation. Wow, so the pandemic, let's see, is this still relevant after the pandemic?
Economic Development Plan
Of 2018?
2018?
Yeah.
I think so.
I think so, yeah.
Okay, okay. When I had an opportunity to drive in, I've never been to Dudley before, so it was a great experience, and I took Route 12 in, and I love mill towns, but with every mill town, I think the urban sprawl dissects the synergy of an epicenter. So I hear that you have a mill project in the works, and I'm sure you have everyone on the spectrum of, oh, what is that going to do to our town? We don't want it, to, let's ride this horse as far as it'll go. So where are you with the mill project?
Well, right now, Bill, maybe you can help with that in regards to, they have the approvals for the Stevens Mill project to move forward. Is there anything right now in regards to where anything holding it up, or where in regards to, because I know they said that the whole project would be about 18 months long.
Yes.
Once they started? Yeah.
So they are in the middle of the planning board approvals. They have asked for continuations a couple of times because they need to get some more information together to submit to the planning board. So we're currently waiting for the revised traffic study. And then we have a consultant who's doing a peer review of that traffic plan. So we think 2 weeks from tonight, we should be able to get back on track and start discussing that element. And then from there we go to reviewing the actual site plan, the drainage, the building layout, the parking, that kind of thing. That'll take maybe a meeting or two. So I'm assuming, or hoping that maybe by the end of April, we should be all set to wrap that up.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's 194 units?
161 at the moment.
161.
Yeah.
Excellent. So I had looked at this, and I also looked at your feasibility study, and there's so many great ideas, but where do you start? And it all comes down to money, right? But there's some low-hanging fruit, and this is just an outsider's perspective, is Nichols College, and really engaging those students with their plans. There's your workforce, or your free workforce.
Hey, Joanne.
Hey, Joanne.
the added value that they contribute to the community is so useful. You know, and it's a win-win proposition right now. You were just talking about the price of college, and so
Right.
parents are saying, okay, it's great, I've taken my kid out of the workforce for 4 to 6 years, they get this very expensive education, yet how does it translate into real-world practical experience? So maybe that's an added value sell to that program. I see that they have an entrepreneurial school, they have a business school, they have video and media production. Is there a way to bridge that gap and bring them in to help some of these heavy lifts? Would be something that I would
So
send.
we do actually, we're actually, later on in the agenda, we've actually already engaged Nichols College in regards to their audiovisual to put together, to help us in regards to having something to help market the town, you know.
Excellent, excellent. You know, I always think that the children run the economics of the family, and that I get a little pushback from that. But you think about how you spend your weekends, what kind of car you drive, where do you live, and so if you can engage those students in the community, the parents, the grandparents, the aunts, the siblings are going to follow. We were able to, down in Norwich, to activate a space that had some challenges. There was no door-to-door parking. And so we engaged the students at NFA to activate the space. It started with the fashion club, and then all of a sudden it became like the little hub of vibrancy, because I know where I spend my money on the weekends, and whatever activity my child is participating in,
Right.
Whether it's, you know, the barns, the soccer field, hockey, and that's where the economics go. But you have parents here that are dropping off kids, and they're probably coming back and forth about 8 to 10 times a year for different reasons, and capturing that that economic bubble as they're coming and going
Right.
would be a really great experience for the town. The other thing I noticed, which was great, was your sidewalks. I saw people walking during the day. You know, even though you have these highways dissecting your town, people want to walk, and if you build it, they will walk it, type thing. And granted, it's a beautiful day, but I'm sure that happens every day,
Right.
no matter the weather. So another thing that I spend a lot of time with is, the basics of economic development is really retention. You know, the businesses that you have here, do you have a retention program? Is someone going out there, somebody trusted? I mean, sometimes it's hard when you have volunteers, but a trusted person to keep touching base with those businesses, because that's where your growth is going to happen. Attraction, getting other businesses to come in is the hardest thing to do in economic development, because you have communities vying over different businesses, but it's really the retention and the growth within. A lot of those startups or small companies will become second growth or third growth companies. We have that experience down in Killingly, where 3 guys, they met up here in Worcester, and they started a plastic fabrication business. Now they're on to the 2nd generation, and they have 465 employees. And one of the things that I constantly do is touch base. What do you need? And it's really about workforce development for them. So we partnered with our community college to create a workforce pipeline, so that they would have the employees, because they're golfers. They would love to be in Florida or Georgia or anywhere but New England, so they could play golf every day. But they don't see their workforce down there. They see their workforce here. So we're constantly making sure that we're connected and having those conversations before they make major decisions. And then it's the clusters. So I was looking at some of your key performance indicators, and manufacturing seems to be part of your gross national product or gross local product. And so those are your clusters, and what are the ancillary businesses that support your manufacturing? Because you certainly would feel it if somebody left. And those ancillary businesses that support that. And in Killingly, we have an industrial park that's full, but it's warehousing and transportation are the 2 things that are connected. So there's some pushback, because everybody thinks about distribution, they think of Amazon. Well, we have an Amazon going on in our neighboring community. That's great, they can have it. However, if you think nationally, what's going on nationally and apply it locally, a lot of these manufacturers are trying to warehouse their supply chain or buy their supply chain, so there's not interruption. So you take what's going on globally and apply it locally. And when we look at our key performance indicators, those two sectors are, the average wage is $60,000 a year. That's a livable wage. And so making sure that we're allowing the growth to happen simultaneously is something that we're watching. I can stop talking if you guys
No.
have questions or.
I do, just because one of the
Yeah.
things, and thank you very much for that, but just, you had mentioned to me a lot of the things that you have going on right now in Killingly, but one of the main, first questions you asked me about our Economic Development Committee is budget. Like, do we have a working budget? And you had mentioned some ways in which your Economic Development Commission is funded. Could you go into that a little bit in regards to like how, because that's obviously, I've seen you've become very creative in regards to getting ways to access funds to help things like with the storefront in Killingly and things like that. Would you be able to talk about that for a couple of moments?
Sure. I can talk about two communities that I worked with, and we took different approaches. So in Killingly, anytime there's a sale of a Killingly-owned parcel, whether we inherit it through tax foreclosure or right now we have a new community center being built, so the old community center gets sold, and that money, 100% of the proceeds go into an economic development trust fund to be, and there's policies and procedures of how you can use that money, but it's for redevelopment or programs within the community. So it gets reinvested, so somebody else's hardship, we're not just feeding the grand list, we're putting it back into redevelopment. And so then we will vote on a project, and then get the approval from the commission, and then it goes to the town council, and then they move it on. So that's one way to feed that. We're looking at, I know you have recreational marijuana facility here.
Yeah, you had asked about our percentage, and I thought it was 3%.
I think it's 3, right?
3%.
Yep.
And so, there's great need and, limited resources, but if there was a way that you could allocate some of those funds to cultivation of your business community or cultivation of, reinvesting in yourselves as opposed to financing what is already in existence, that may be an avenue. I know in other states out west, they use a percentage of the sales tax, and they're able to do great things with that money. So that's in the community I currently work in. I came from a larger community. It was a mill city, 50,000 people. It's down in Norwich, Connecticut, which is close to the casinos. But what we did to help the community and economic development is we took a bond out, a $1.3 million bond. So a percentage of it was allocated to revolving loan for startups, so that banks, sometimes don't like to, either high-risk restaurants type things, but how do you get those started? And so we do a revolving loan program, and then the idea is to grow that fund. Then we did a lease rebate program where we would get entrepreneurs come in, they would have to present a business plan, is this a viable business? And then we would give them every 4th lease check, they would get one back to reinvest in their business or offset cost, because those startup years are, the highest expense years. And then the other part was code correction and facade improvements. So landlords sometimes don't want to invest in their buildings because the cash flow isn't there to justify the improvement. So we would do, because it was an old mill town, we did fire life safety, but you could do it with facade programs, matching, so businesses have skin in the game, and it's a win-win,
Awesome.
Investment in the community.
Yeah, you had also mentioned when I had mentioned to you about the Stevens Mill project here, that you had mentioned something regarding tapping into, because I know you have an Amazon in the neighboring town, and that you were looking for housing. and to have the redevelopment of some of the mills there, that Amazon has like an equity fund or something?
Correct.
Could you maybe go into that a little bit? Because I don't know if any of us are aware.
So is there an Amazon distribution center up here?
Charlton
Is-
would be their closest.
Charlton, which is the neighboring town.
And how far that away? Oh, interesting.
Yeah,
And then Uxbridge, right?
I think so, Uxbridge, but Charlton is right next door
Is
to
the neighboring
us.
town?
Yeah.
Okay, so this is a trade secret.
Okay.
And it's probably being recorded,
Yeah.
so, right now, with the cost of labor and, materials, it's about $400 a square foot to redo a mill. Those are huge cost wins. And so banking, institutions like it to be about $150 a square foot, and that's a bankable project. So how do you, close that gap? Well, utilizing historic tax and federal credits is one way, and that can offset it about 30%. But you still have a gap of about $130 per square foot. So how would you, close that threshold to make it a bankable project and also to make it cash flow? Well, Amazon has a $2.1 billion, they call it equity fund for housing, because they understand they put up these big distribution centers where are their workers going to live, and it needs to be in close proximity to these facilities. So creative thinking, they, down in Virginia, they went into leases, like stabilizing leases, because they didn't want to drive up the cost of price for leases, so they made an agreement with 99 years of basically cost control on leases for their employees, so their employees could live close to the facility. Out in Puget Sound in Washington, the cost of a house is, the starting price is $750,000. How do you get an $18 an hour worker to live in that community? So they're investing in affordable housing in that community. Down in Nashville, part of their equity fund is marginalized builders. So they're training groups of people that normally wouldn't get into construction to, so it would be a win-win proposition in developing housing down there. So in New England, we're a little different. So where is our affordable housing? It looks like mills, and affordable housing is really workforce housing. And so we're putting together a proposal to do a capital stack so that we're going to tap into, or hopefully tap into that equity fund to support the neighboring community, because we don't want to become just simply the bedroom community. They get all the economic grand list growth, and then we end up being the service community. So it's a win-win proposition. We need housing, but we also don't want our industrial park competing with the Amazon employees. So build the housing, and that way both communities can win and sustain the project. We get our mills redone, in my mind, and we get the workforce in close proximity.
Very interesting.
I will let you know how that pitch works. With we have a meeting with the state commissioner on the 8th, but he's been out. He understands the challenges, and
Yeah.
so.
Wow, but, best of luck to you on that. I know, and before, if anybody else has any questions, I know that you had taken the time graciously to look at our plan for the Main Street district and things of that nature, and you'd given me some great ideas in regards to some inexpensive or less expensive manners to beautify the storefronts and things of that nature. Could you talk maybe just a little bit about that in regards to what you've seen on like the plan that that you looked at, or we looked at together for Dudley?
Sure. Well, there's so much there. I mean, there's so many great opportunities, but you have to start there. Start with one thing, and just build on it. There's a term in economic development and planning. It's called, they go taxis, and it's like people like edges. So you want to kind of build where the synergy is, and then build out a little bit. So we have a proposal together through our economic development fund. We authorized hiring a architectural group to come in and do a placemaking proposal. Now, placemaking, it can happen in a, square footage this big. So when I talk about quality of life, every community says, oh, we have a great quality of life. Well, quality of life has a lot to do with personal economics. Like my quality of life is very different than Jeff Bezos, yet it's drastically different than, say, somebody living in Hartford in the projects with a disability. So really as a community, what you want to do is quality of place, and that's an equalizer. Everyone can enjoy those quality, that sense of place, but it's tied to economics. Are your taxes affordable? Are your streets well maintained? Are your schools, which I noticed were really strong, is creating that sense of place that everybody recognizes that's the place to go. And so in your community, you have a huge farming heritage. That might be a easy, low-hanging fruit coupled with the college of doing a food market or bringing those farmers to a place and getting people coming in to identify, is there a small pocket park that you could redesign or put some energy into it? And there's grant funding, and once again, who's going to do this? It's the talent. You could work with the college. We work with the UConn with the brownfield because there's only one of me and so much need. So you can tap into those resources and work with someone to help get a grant, a placemaking grant, and there's money available for that. In Killingly, we have a similar challenge where we have a state highway running, dissecting our main street. So we're limited as to what we can do on the front side, but on the back side, we have an abundance of municipal parking. It's crazy. I think there's 600 parking spots, within a 3-minute radius that are not being utilized. But the minute I start saying I want to use 15 parking spots, they're like, there's no parking. So we took, an underutilized parking lot on the back sides of the building, and we're making a pocket park, and we were calling it the Brickyard because all the buildings are made out of brick. So it's identifiable. People understand what it is, and it's, I always say lighter, cheaper, faster. Proof of concept. We're just throwing paint on pavement, vibrant, low-cost seating, and programming the heck out of it. And the programming is coming from our Parks and Rec, but also private investment. So we have an Elks Club. Whoever wants to throw a party in that space, let's just keep it going. So it's going to be Zumba on Wednesdays, car shows on Thursday, and just get people used to the idea coming down. But once again, who's managing this? And that's where we rely on our volunteers and our talent and tapping into, you have Nichols College, we have QVCC, which is a community college. And then once that, that proof of concept happens, then you can make bigger investment like sculpture and things like that. That we have a progressive plan of phasing.
Okay, thank you very much. Because I know that within the next several years, lately I've been going to Killingly quite a bit on banking business, and it's just to see like them, being able to come up with the ideas and to make it, to get people to come to the, to the downtown area or to wherever you're creating is just going to be, it's going to be really nice to see. Does anybody have any other questions or, for Jill? She's.
Yeah, I was wondering, how do you brand your town? Did you do a consultant study and come up with some sort of slick marketing and, logos and things of that sort, or do you just sort of promote from within?
That's a great question, because with branding you're going to have 50 different ideas, and with Killingly, because we have 7 different boroughs, they were trying to get rid of those little identifiable
like little
boroughs.
Villages? Is that what you mean by a borough?
Yeah, we have like Danielson is our downtown borough, and then we have Dayville,
Okay.
and it's very confusing to the outsiders.
Right.
So one of the things, we don't have an official brand that we're going to spend a lot of money with. It's just the dialogue. One of the things that our Killingly High School won a national robotics event the first year they had a club, and then they came second this year. So it's like, okay, how do we tell our story of who we are? We're manufacturing. So when people tell me, oh, nothing's made in America, and I'm like, you're right, it's made in Killingly. And there are like 17 different industries. So it's innovation, so that it's the innovation corridor. We just talk about it. You don't really even need to brand it. It's the dialogue. It's the messaging coming from inside out. In a little town, Canterbury, which is 5,000 people, very rural, we made some negative national press like 20 years ago. And it really hurt the morale of the town because outsiders were identifying us as like the Hatfield and the McCoys that couldn't get along. So we just started this, from economic development, we just started, talking about Canterbury. It's Canterbury, period, nice country. That's what we're selling, the country lifestyle. And it took a while, and then the attractions happened. And now everybody is like, just from hearing it, we did have some T-shirts that some college kids made for us. We had little QR codes. Just Canterbury, nice country. And
Yeah.
you say it enough, people believe it. Otherwise, outsiders identify who you are. In Norwich, it was an old mill town, but then it became known as a social service town because people wanted to be at the epicenter. And we had to change that dialogue. It was the Rose of New England. Now it's, we call it Global City, Norwich, because there's 38 languages being spoken there. That's a real asset. Those people are very entrepreneurial. So it doesn't have to be a major investment. That's just a unified conversation outward.
Interesting, very interesting. Anybody else?
Yeah, so the question I have is, you said that the way you guys get funded is that if there is a parcel of land in town that gets sold, you guys receive the proceeds from that. How does that work? I mean, if a parcel of land in Dudley was sold, it would belong to the town, not to a particular, committee or what have you. So there had to be some arrangements prior.
Yeah, it was a conversation, and it was approached. It became a town ordinance. So when you have tax foreclosure, sometimes, what do you do with that money? So it goes into the economic development fund to get reinvested. So it was worked through an ordinance, I believe, back in 2006.
Well, that's great.
Mm.
And then the other question I have is, you obviously are very involved in the town of Killingly, and you had referenced Norwich as well. Just curious, it sounds like you spend a lot of time doing that. Is that what you're doing full-time, or is it?
Yeah. So economic developers, we're a special breed. They come from all backgrounds, sometimes from law, real estate. And I own a real estate title search company. I was a site selector for 32 years, which doesn't even seem possible because I'm, 30? Just connecting those dots, understanding how land works. And so professionally as an economic developer, I have 15 years in the industry. And I am now full-time. I'm a project girl, so that's what I do. I like it. I like incubation. I love startups, but I put together the tribal lands for the Mashantucket Pequot tribe. So I love both.
So you work for the town?
I work for the town. I came in May of 2020 as everything was shutting down and we were opening restaurants again. So it's been 18 months.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Certainly a lot of accomplishments. That's good.
Yeah.
Under whose authority do you come with the town? Who are you under? Who hired you?
Who hired me from the?
Yeah, are you under an economic development committee or under a planner? Who?
I am a paid professional through the town. We have a line budget item.
Okay, so it's the town that employs you. You are not
Right.
under any specific board, whatever their chain of command
No,
is.
I do. I'm a consultant to the Economic Development Commission, and they're volunteers in the town, business owners and passionate taxpayers.
And are you, do you have a link to get these projects that you get a project fee or something that you are the administrator of this
No.
project? Or are you strictly salaried that you're working
No.
for the town or whatever your situation
I
is?
just work for the town. I get paid strictly salary. There are no bonuses. It's, what's good for the town is good for the region, good for the state. So sometimes we'll get involved in, stretching the limits of our town because there's synergy.
And what board, who specifically hired you? When I say, was it a I don't know if you operate by a board of selectmen or,
Um,
who created the position and hired you, sought this to come about?
So in Killingly, we have a town manager.
Yep.
She's a paid professional, and then we have a town council. So the process in which I was hired was, actually, they came looking for me. A couple people from the Economic Development Commission had heard about the work I was doing in Norwich. They came down, they planted the seed, and I was very happy in the community I was in, but Killingly has a main street, and I love a main street. So I thought, oh, I'll just throw my resume in there, and if it's meant to be, it'll happen. So I got called back, and it was a hiring committee. I went through that, and then we went through an economic development, or hiring subcommittee from our town council, and then a final vote.
So they actually hired you, like,
Mhm.
we don't have any hiring ability here,
Mm-hmm.
so that's a different.
They had input, yeah.
Okay.
But it was also the department heads, because it's a team. We have a planner, we have a conservation officer, finance director. So it was, how well do you work with the team? Because nothing happens in a bubble. I can look great, but if I don't have a team behind me, supporting me, or, you know,
But your team
I'm
is
not a one
volunteer,
person.
right?
Hmm?
Your team is volunteer.
They're all paid professionals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yeah.
But like other people in the Economic Development Commission,
Mhm.
are you the only paid professional?
Yes,
Everybody else is
volunteer.
volunteer within your department or your
Correct.
committee, okay. And they're usually, like you said, they're made up of business owners or things like that, very similar to like our committee?
Yes,
Okay.
I believe there's 6 of us.
Okay.
And we meet every other month, unless there's a special reason to have a meeting,
Mhm.
project.
Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. A little bit different than here.
Mhm. What kind of a web presence do you maintain to sort of market the town?
Website, it's a
Yeah.
very municipal website.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Okay, so you don't have a fancy website for
No.
economic development?
There's 2 websites for economic development that I love to look at. Wyndham has a great website that's strictly for economic development. I think Golden Shovel was the producer of
Mhm.
that, and Groton is another one that, and I think Golden Shovel did that too.
Mhm.
But, you know, those huge cost wins on those,
Mhm.
and maintenance fees, but
Mhm.
ours is very municipal.
Awesome.
You come under Killingly per se, what is the population that's supporting your position?
We are just shy of 18,000, and we have a $2.1 billion grant list. We have an industrial park,
Yeah.
and we have a power plant.
Okay.
The community that I came from in Norwich, a distressed municipality, I think it's number 2 in the town, or in the region. They had a $3.1 billion grand list, and 50,000 members of the community. And the way theirs was structured was, we had it was a development agency, so part of our funding came from the town, the other was private investment. So we would get administrative fees for projects, such as we had done Panema Mills, which is, have you ever heard of that? It's 350 units. It was an old textile mill. So we were the administrator, we were the conduit to go through to get some of that financing, so we got administrative fees from that. So our budget was supported by both sides, public and private, and that structure helped us a little bit more because we were a nonprofit, so a 501c3, so we could tap into certain grant money and things like that.
So did your job come about because of a grant writer assisting this economic development?
Nope.
No?
They have had, because of the industrial park, I think is when they hired
Okay.
their first economic developer, and she had been there for 18 years prior to my arrival.
Interesting. Has there been ever a position here in the town that anybody knows of that was like salary position regarding economic development?
No,
No?
no, we have no money for those things. Someone has to approach and create a position and figure out how to fund it, if you ever wanna move forward. If you can't create funding, we are simply a board, for want of a better word, of do-gooders. And for us to follow through on things, we're very limited on what we can do without some kind of backup that you have to have created through the chain of command, which obviously came through their administration at the top to bring it down. We can't develop much of anything without formal proposals, and again, you have to bring in probably your board of selectmen
Yeah.
to look at trying to create your funding to do that. You have a very diverse town, though. I mean, I recently was involved with someone in assisted living out in Killingly, and I could not believe, on a back road, I suddenly was at a facility that was
Restview.
unbelievable, that it's
Right.
out in the boonies.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Dudley certainly could handle something like that if we ever had anybody wanted to come in and develop something along those lines. It's
Right.
beautiful. It's a beautiful
It's
facility.
an amazing project.
And
Yeah.
I thought, I can't believe I'm in Killingly.
Right.
He has a cradle to grave philosophy. He's putting in a daycare to support the workforce.
Wow.
Yeah, so he has assisted living, and then he has independent, high-end
Rehab.
independent living.
They have everything.
He was 100% booked, yeah. Yeah, because a lot of these, you know, these projects, it'll have project fatigue because there's nobody pushing it from behind, and you just need the team. As far as a grant writer, grant writers, if you hired a grant writing position, there's specialized language for grant writing. It's, you know, if you're doing a mill, it's technical and engineering assistance that you need. If it's arts, you know, you need those skills of telling a story, a compelling story, and then you need a program manager. So I'm looking at filling a position. We have to figure out how to, you know, finance that position. And I need a grant writer. I write grants. I don't think I'm very good at it, but, you know, somebody has to do it. I don't think that's the best use, but I have had some success. But you need somebody then to administrate the grant. So I would say look for a project manager as opposed to a grant writer. And you'll get more attraction because people are attracted to a project, not just filling out municipal paperwork all day long. And so that would be the language I would tend to use. Grant writers usually about $55,000 a year. But, you know, ask them what their capacity is. You know, I have replaced my income through grant writing. It doesn't get funneled that way, it goes out into the community, but that's I feel like it's part of my job is to add value to the community.
If I were looking to find how to find a job description, I knew and I was scouting the internet, what would I be scouting to look for in towns, what your position might be called in other towns?
Mine is a economic development director.
Okay. And if I pulled that up, it would define what it is you do. And just looking at a job search, trying to figure out where are you people?
Right.
How do we find you?
Right.
Yeah.
Because it brings up, Joanne brings up a really good point. That's the tough part when you have a volunteer board or committee, and you know, like you said, we're it, and we've done quite a bit. But when we don't really have a budget, and all these things that, you know, to have somebody really do the pushing, it's more difficult. So it'd be like, how would we go about, you know, Joanne, approaching the selectmen in the town, and and to.
I would invite her to have a meeting, a big meeting, and see if you could get them to listen to what she has to say.
Yeah.
I mean, or have them play this tape and see what's going on in other communities. You have to be proactive, not reactive in the world. All we tend to do is be reactive. If you're not ahead of the game,
Right.
and I hate to say it, years ago, being in real estate, Century 21 had a motto, only the lead dog has a view. I've never forgotten that when you're last at something, your view's not so good. You gotta be a person or a community of first to figure out where are you going to go to keep your community ahead and move it forward. And you have to justify cost. If you can't talk about money to townspeople, you can't move things forward. You have to show them the benefit of why that exists, why you wanna do that.
Right.
Otherwise, we'll be looking at communities of, for want of a better description, pizza parlors, marijuana, I mean,
Package stores.
Yeah, I'm getting
Right.
tired of the same stuff.
Right.
That's where we seem to be headed. This is much more creative, looking at your community and seeing what can you bring in. I mean, just what she had said
Yeah.
about a big industry coming in, like even what you said in Charlton, that company coming in offers another opportunity for our community to be able to expand something that will benefit that community.
Right.
Often in small communities, it'll end up in the planning department. They'll be planning and economic development, so wearing two hats all the time, or that's where there's supportive staff as opposed to just, you know, I work hand in hand with my, we have a director of planning and zoning, and then we have a planner, and we're working together all the time on joint projects. You know, and I can call them up and say, hey, I don't know how to use the GIS, but this is what I need. I need you to take my heat map of where my employees are going and to drop some mills on that map. Can you do that overlay? And he's like, done. You know, so it's really creating that team and getting young talent in. You know, they have a different perspective, and which, you know, wherever I can, any intern opportunity, unpaid, we don't have a budget for that, but I'll just say, you know, tell me what you're interested in. I will create a project. And it's really neat. They really grasp those ideas, and it's of added value. Some of my interns have done some spectacular things. One works at Advanced CT now, and another one interned for Joe Courtney's office, which is our state senator.
Wow.
Yeah.
Very, very interesting.
Yeah, Bill won't say it, but he ends up doing all this. He corrals us all and directs us all, and, you know, and part-time, I think.
Right. Yeah. So
It's
yeah,
amazing
Yeah.
what we get accomplished.
You don't get an
as a
extra bonus for that, Bill? No? No?
Good idea, Todd. Thank
Right,
you.
I think we should put that on the agenda for the next meeting. Anyway.
Yep.
And your position is the planner?
It's part-time, yes.
Part-time,
Right.
yeah.
So we don't really have a lot of ability to implement
Yeah.
a lot of things. We depend on consultants and, you know, bring in outside resources wherever we can, do grant writing and that kind of thing.
Right. And
His
who does the
motto
grant
is he's
writing?
always here part-time.
He's- I like that.
Who does the grant writing?
I do some of it. The administrator does some of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, they're labor intensive.
Mhm.
Yeah, we just got done doing a Connecticut Communities Challenge grant, and I was like, let's start now.
Right. And I mean, because we have the, you know, the LRRP plan that we've been, you know, working to, you know, on for quite some time, and we've got a couple of different things that we're going to be focusing on. I believe one was the storefront revitalization, and what was the other one? I forgot.
Gateway.
The gateway, so, you know, you know, beautifying the gateway, so you come in, you know,
You've
especially
arrived.
because our gateway is also gonna be in very near proximity to the the Stevens Linen Mill project. You know, it's just, you know, and we're continuing to make some headway on that, but just hoping, getting the funding and then just putting that to work, and then coming up with ideas, you know, like you had mentioned, of stuff that we could do with, but again, it's just, we have limited funding to make this go a long way, you know.
And that's a state highway, your gateway is a state highway, right?
I believe it is, right?
It's 2 highways?
Yeah.
Yes.
There's some, you know, there should be some DOT gateway, wayfinding type funding available. Yes, but then a lot of these grants, it's in kind, and sometimes they want the cash in kind, and that's where you need those tools in your tool chest. When I came up to Killingly, I was like, okay, these are the tools I need, and I had a team behind me saying, okay, you know, the Revolving Loan Fund to help new startups, that was one of the tools I needed in my tool chest.
Yeah. And just, I don't know if I think I may have mentioned this before, but what Jill's referring to is, she approached the bank because the town of Killingly is actually our biggest municipal government banking client. And they have this revolving loan fund where they're, the Economic Development Committee and her members, they have a certain amount of funds that they earmarked for this. I believe it was 100,000 or something of that nature, and they can take applications for people and they could be startups or anything like that, because they had a big vacancy of all the storefronts in downtown. And they can go up to a loan, which is fully backed, it's cash secured, up to $25,000 to, you know, and they basically, they interview, they look at the business plans, and then they basically bring it over to us, and then we'll, you know, give them the loan. It's an actual loan that they have to pay back, but it's secured by the town. And then it gets replenished with, you know, the interest and things like that to help grow the fund. But it then allows, you know, like somebody who wants to open up a little bagel shop or a little whatever in the town to get, you know, to help them, because sometimes even an amount like 25,000 could be extraordinary, you know, for one of these businesses. And that's just one of the little things that, you know, they're working on, and we've already seen some success with that.
Yeah,
You know.
and that was one of the tools I asked for in the tool chest. Is we had this economic development trust fund. I think it had 400,000 in it. I said, can I take 100,000 of that and recirculate it into starting up businesses? And once again, I had to go through our approval process. But like I said, the team that I have, I feel is willing to invest back in the community. But we did it in a concentrated area, a targeted area as a proof of concept. And it's not because we don't care about the other parts of our community, but when you talk about branding, you're defined by your downtown or perceived downtown. So that's where you're gonna have the impact. Because if I threw 10,000 over here and 25,000 over here and 5 over here, you're not gonna feel the impact. So we created a pilot program, and we called it our Central Business District, and it had to meet that criteria. We didn't, and there are a few things that we won't fund. We can't it's not for the purchase of the property. It's for inventory or infrastructure, remodeling, marketing, that kind of thing. And we don't do nonprofits because you can't really tether, you know, the collateral to a nonprofit. We haven't figured that piece out yet. But it's a tool in the tool chest.
Mm-hmm.
But it sounds like you got like a champion here, an army of one.
We do, we absolutely.
We get a lot of support from CMRPC as well. We pay them, but.
What is that? That's
Central Mass Regional Planning, yeah, out of Worcester.
It's like a cog,
a COG, and they contribute funding or just
No.
technical support?
yes.
Nice,
They help drive projects and.
excellent.
Is your town always had a full-time planner, or is, what is your situation? Because we've actually gone backwards. We've gone from having a full-time planner, having a clerk, to having a one-man show to try and do things, and somewhere we've become a community of volunteers, and you can't run a business with volunteers. If you're gonna project, you've gotta start looking at giving proposals that involve creating positions to move forward. Is your planner full-time, and how long have they been full-time?
We have a full-time planning department. We have, because that's where the town chose to make their investment in, you know, sustainable growth. We talked about that a little bit of, you know, I call it the suburban experiment, you know, where we put these highways in, and it just, now we're, you know, the thought was that the growth would serve us. Now we're serving that growth. We're maintaining those roads, and, you know, we really should be backfilling where we started, you know, because the cost per acre, you know, as you go out is less of a contributor. So you want your epicenter strong. But you'll see a lot of cities reinvesting in their downtowns because price per acre, that's where your grand list is.
So you had a systematic process to get to the point where you're at, to be able to do this kind of
The projects?
attraction. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're back in the Bronze Age, whatever it is. We need to have gotten those people who are more involved in funding and who need to be able to make a better presentation to sell a community, that it's not about keeping a low tax rate, it's about trying to keep your community ahead and have it the way you want, that you have areas that you are proud of that also make sense for community, not that you try and drive through quick and get beyond.
Right.
But that's gonna come from a selling job, and the selling job starts from a couple of boards saying, the buck stops here. We can only do so much. He can only do so much. There's only so many hours in the day.
That's true.
He's on every board giving advice that overlaps with any kind of development, and he doesn't have a support. Maybe part of what we need to be looking at is finding out the plan of who's involved in what they're doing, and try and see what the link would be to be going to the authorities who are the people above us, which are gonna be selectmen, to say, hey, we need to start looking at things differently. We're gonna have an influx of money, probably,
Right.
from some of these businesses that have come in. Are we gonna throw it in the bank? What are we gonna do with the money, or are we gonna try and put it back into our community to make ourselves smarter?
I couldn't agree with you more, and I think that probably that's one of the things that should be on the top of this committee's to-do list in regards to figuring out how can we make everything that you just mentioned happen, like to prepare ourselves to approach the selectmen to say, listen, if we are going to create this kind of economic development, there needs to be an investment. Where can we get the funding to do this, to, whether it's hiring somebody like Jill, to do it full-time, and to assist folks like, the town planner, and to really get on board, because, even just with the Stevens linen mill having, the 160-something apartments and some other new, if we really wanna bring in industry, not to mention, we have a college here, there's a lot of things going on, but we can't expect anything to change if we keep on doing it the same way, right? So, but
The significant difference between Killingly and the 5 boroughs and Dudley is taxes, significant taxes. I don't know what your mill rate is, but.
We have the boroughs, we have the fire districting taxes, but it's about 27 mils.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is
I
it
don't
here?
know what ours is,
Like 12.
yeah,
Oh, it's really low.
Yeah.
Yeah,
like second lowest in Mass.
right.
So that there, okay, so let's raise our mill to 27, we could get a Jill, right? We could have a full-time planner, we could have but that's what it all comes down to, that nothing's free,
Right.
Right. Right.
So,
Well, I always, your greatest asset in any community is your people,
Yeah.
right? And, and your talent. And, is that a good investment? Invest in your talent? Or,
no, of course, but,
Yeah.
Every one of us has been to town meeting, and it's us and a few other people that come to the town meeting, and when it's time for budgets, it's the school asking for everything, the police and fire asking for things they absolutely need, but they've gotten to a point where they know how to work the system, so if we need this, we're gonna ask for this and maybe get this, right?
Mhm.
And all of them are doing the same thing. So unfortunately, the people in this building get this, I shouldn't say the short stick, but anyway, they're
Mhm.
not first.
What
you
would
know?
be the chances or the probability of increasing that rate?
Again, you have to have better salesmanship. Number one,
Right.
you need to have a plan. I mean, if someone like you were to give us a ground one, step one plan of what we need to basically get ourselves, and maybe this is a 4-step process to get to a situation where you're at. You have to sell in this program on baby steps, but again, it's about educating people. The number one way to educate, start with the board that controls the money. That's gonna be your board of selectmen.
Well, maybe you should ask to get put on a selectmen's agenda and start the conversation about how can we increase, staffing capacity in the town and devote more resources to economic development.
well, the 3% that's coming back to the town, for cultivation. That feels like an opportunity not to get eaten into the grand list. That feels like an opportunity to feed and cultivate your economic development. And low taxes are great, but that's not sustainable, because if you don't reinvest in what you have,
Right.
like I always say, I own a house. Well, if I don't spend any money on my house, it's save today,
gonna be worth
pay
much,
twice
yeah.
tomorrow. So
Right.
you constantly have to be reevaluating where you want to go. And
Yeah,
I
and
just,
things
I
get
think you have
done,
this.
you know, again, the firehouse, that was how many years, and, you know, so you're right. Those have said that, you know, it's a process, we've gotta start somewhere, and if you just, you know, have a defeatist attitude about, well, you know, the rate's low and it's not likely ever gonna happen, it won't, but,
Mhm.
yeah.
I think a lot of it starts with becoming an informed individual or an informed board. And until you make a board knowledgeable about what the opportunities are and what the benefits are, you go nowhere. And you need to have somebody, I mean, she's obviously smarter than all of us on what she does, because this is what she does for a living.
Right, sure.
I have learned a long time ago, I hire somebody to be a professional, I do what they tell me to do and stay out of their way.
Mhm.
That's the way
Right.
it works. And don't second guess them. I think educating the selectmen to saying, this is, what are we gonna do with our community in the next few years? We're a board that keeps looking for ways to attract industry, and we're doing some projects, but maybe we need professional guidance. And can we plan for that professional guidance?
And the growth's gonna come from within. You know, entrepreneurs are very savvy, which you own 3, yeah. It's your existing business, and giving them an opportunity to grow is really your easiest avenue. Traction, because like I said, we're all battling for the same, you know. And then what happens is that communities get into a TIF war of like, and I happen to be, it wasn't my project, but I happened to do the site selection for a project down in New London. New London was a port city, and they made a deal with Pfizer to bring in all their executives. They said it would be great for the city, and what happened is after that 15-year agreement was done, they picked up and they went to the next great agreement, which was down in New Jersey. And it really didn't leave a lot of investment in the community. It was the initial construction jobs, but a lot of those jobs were from out of the town. The executives that were working at Pfizer, they were living in other communities. Yeah, it was a tough lesson. It made case law. It was called Little Pink House.
Wow.
Yeah, it was an eminent domain project, but
Mhm.
you know, so you really don't want to get into that that war of attracting through tax abatement. Sure, on construction projects, you know, like keep the money in the construction, you know, in the project, but once that's completed, make those agreements smaller, because it really is, industry is going to exist where they see their workforce. That's the great commodity. It's not, you know, the price of labor so much. It's where is your workforce? Where do we see where we're going to be able to survive? And where do they want to live? This is a great community to live in. So the growth from within, and then you'll get the attention in the outside world. You don't need to attract them. Right now, I think Texas has huge growth. They have a whole statewide industry. Their job is to go find California companies and bring them to Texas and give them the best deal possible. It's amazing.
Interesting.
That shouldn't be hard to do.
Just in the, just looking at the time here, if there's no other questions, and I'm sure, like, you know, we'd always invite you back at some point to speak with us. I can't thank you enough for giving us your experience and your knowledge, Jill. Greatly appreciated. But if you, I mean, you're more than welcome to stay. I mean, I know it's already, we're an hour into the meeting. I was just gonna move on to the next item on the agenda. You're more than welcome to stay. If not,
No, I have to go, but thank you for having
Okay.
me, and feel free,
Mhm.
and I would love to get your card. I'll send you any opportunities that I know about, and help you connect the
Okay,
dots.
I'll be in touch.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah, a friend of
Great.
Todd's is a friend of mine.
Okay.
okay. Thanks, Jill.
Thank you.
Alrighty, next up, and I know we're kind of a little bit pressed for time here, but we have 2 more items I think that we can go over. The video project and also any updates from yourself, Bill. I think, didn't we all get a chance to view? I know I voted.
I did.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah, I've got the results.
Okay.
We had 4 members.
They were
vote.
interesting. They were very interesting.
Tallywhacker summary, or whatever we call
We
it.
call it. Oh, that was interesting. Couple of them were. I think Mr. Ruda was a good sport. He looked like he had a couple of long
Yeah.
interviews.
For for sure.
And then, Mark, you had sent me a comment. Is that okay to share with the
Yeah,
committee
yeah,
as well? Okay.
yeah. I try to remember what I sent.
So, from the videos, I think there were 11 that we actually were able to view. And we had 4 members vote: Jason, Mark, Jonathan, and Todd. I think the ones that sort of got, the most votes were How Troy. We had 3 for Connor Santoni, and then a couple of others had 2 checks. Vasilios Pathanopoulos and Dylan Mitchell and Cameron Legvold. So it was interesting. Most of them got at least 1 vote. It's hard to sort of see a clear winner here, but I think what Mark's suggestion is, in his comment, was to cut and paste some of the best features from some of these videos. And he had some suggestions here in terms of sections of different videos that might sort of be weaved into a nice sort of town marketing kind of video. So that's what we've got. I think the next step would be to see whether we could in fact do as Mark suggests in terms of trying to edit some of these and, put different pieces together into one.
Yeah, I would agree with Mark's statement.
Yeah, it may not be the right, that's just my recommendation on, I looked at it as beginning, middle, and end, right? And then, which videos had the best beginning, the best middle, and the best end, that if we were able to, patch those 3 together, that it would make, one really good video. But we should probably all agree that those are the right beginning, middle, and end, because I clearly had a different opinion about the best video, and I just picked one rather than, there were 11 of them, so my feeling was I've got to pick one of them, so, but I didn't, Todd and I matched on that one, but clearly the one Home Troy was, I don't even remember what that was, but I do say use Home Troy as the opening.
How Troy,
So-
yeah.
I'll try.
Oh,
How, right.
How Troy.
That was his first name, right?
Yeah, okay,
Mm-hmm.
so,
Oh, and I see Lauren Dutton also got 2 as well.
yeah, and then Jeff and Beth in Capricia. And it looks like there were 2 of those. So I didn't say 2, I said 1. So maybe that was number 1. So we start with How Troy, and then we go to Capricia 1 and finish with Legvold. And if we're all in agreement with that, then great, and I'm not trying to persuade anyone. If you guys wanna look at it again and decide if that's the good, beginning, middle, and end, then we can do that. Or I can go directly to Professor Russo and ask if he can, do what we want him to do.
Yeah, I'm in agreement with that.
Mm-hmm.
Should we go back to him first and ask him if he can do that for us, and then we get the
Yeah,
A-OK, and then
Even if he
vote on-
can't, I think we could probably get somebody to, whether it's Sensation Technologies or someone like that, and just give
Mhm.
them the 3 videos and say, hey, can you put together the best,
Mhm.
someone who's good with videography or
Right.
whatever, but.
There were a couple of nice features. Some were touting the rural landscapes, and the town beach came up in a couple, and so if we could weave some of those key features of the town in as well, it would be nice.
Yeah, the thing that I guess, and this has been going on for a long time. so I think there were there were a number of messages. When we first started, it was, how do we get businesses to come here? And they're not gonna come here because of the Dudley Beach, and because there's a lot of farmland necessarily. You know, and if they are those the businesses that we want here? You know, do we wanna grow infrastructure, or do we want, you know, another pizza shop or a package store? And I'd love to live in that town where my business is and whatever. So that's where I got kind of, you know, this is, like I said, it's been going on for a while, so I'm not sure, you know, maybe just mixed up in my mind, but I mean, that's why we all probably live in Dudley, is because of those features, but great place to live, but is that where you want your business? I wanna know that it's easy for me to get in and get out, for customers to get in and get out, that the highways are nearby, and so that's what I focused my video on, you know?
Yeah.
And that's what I focused my recommendations on.
Well, to pick up from what Joe was saying, you know, quality of place
Yeah,
rather than quality of life, you know,
yeah,
is what she thinks is the way to, you know, promote the town, so.
yeah.
And there was a number of things in there that really promoted the quality of place in Dudley that maybe stand out.
Okay.
But yeah, to the point, does that really attract businesses though? I mean, I don't know, if you can convince people it's a nice place to live, then maybe it's a nice place to do business as well.
Right. Yeah, I don't wanna live in an industrial town, but I guarantee you their tax base is paid 90% on industry, right? But I wanna live in a, you know, quiet community where I can go to the beach or, you know, whatever, but
Yeah,
drive in, you know, and see a you know, on a rural road and enjoy the scenery in the fall or whatever, but I don't know, that's just where my head's at. But I can do whatever the board wants to do, you know. I'd prefer to not take all 11 videos and make one good one out of it. I think that'd be a pretty daunting task.
right.
I think we really do need to narrow it down to, you know, 2 or 3 of the videos. But-
Yeah.
Well, so,
And then, sorry.
no, go ahead.
And then we can either get new videos or use those existing. Maybe we make 2 videos out of this, right? So we have a rural aspect of the community, and then we have the business side of it, and we have a little bit of a series, you know, and then maybe we can get on to Professor Russo's next class, and we can have a different agenda for him, because we had talked about doing that as well.
Yeah, we did.
Would it make sense to invite some of the professor in here to a meeting to discuss this, or do they not wanna come out and?
To invite the
Maybe.
professor?
Yeah, some of the students maybe, who might be working on that task?
Yeah, I don't even know that they're, you know, some of them may have graduated, you know, this was last year, right?
Right, it was, yeah.
Right.
So I'm not sure who's available, and, you know, do we get the ones whose video we open it up to everybody, or are we only gonna get the ones whose video we didn't have any interest in, you know?
Right.
And I don't know that Professor Russo would be interested. I could certainly, you know, try, but.
Well, I guess maybe the first step would be for you to talk to them and see whether they can
Yeah.
actually do this cutting and editing work.
I'd be happy to do that.
And then I think you have good suggestions in terms of the videos to look at, and we've sort of confirmed by the voting of the members.
Okay.
Okay. Joanne, did you have something to add?
Yeah, I guess I probably got too distracted with the people making a comment in their appearance, because I didn't like what I saw. And I didn't know if they were part of the video in their baseball caps and looking how they did, or if I should have just been focusing on the pictures, because I didn't like the whole presentation on that basis, of any of them other than the interview with Ruda. So I guess that was my hang-up, that I thought this was the presentation, and I got kind of concerned that I'm gonna look at a kid in a baseball cap. I think they're nice kids, but I didn't think it looked
Right.
overly professional.
Right.
No, it wasn't.
On Mark's comment, I think he had a valid point of what I thought we were gonna try and convey about the town. I'll give you a simple example. I showed a house on Lyons Road. People looked at the Lyons Road and they said, "Did you come through the main street of Webster?" They said, "Yes." I said, "Well, you added 13 minutes of travel time on. Had you come from the center of Oxford, over Dudley Oxford Road, and landed here, you would have saved yourself about 11 minutes of travel time. So when you leave here, go straight across, turn right, and then follow Dudley Oxford Road. You're 6 miles, maybe 7 miles to the center of Oxford. That, to me, is a feature of Dudley that you don't need a helicopter to get to us. That I thought part of what we were trying to promote is that we really are easy to get to as a commuter, if you live in this town, to get in and out. And I don't know that we conveyed that in anything, that people do think, they look on a map, and when, I get it all the time, you must get it showing houses. I always ask, you come through the main street? Because there's 3 ways in and out of this town, and we never hit the main street to get to a property.
Yeah.
So accessibility didn't get conveyed in any way on that part. But I think it was a great start. It wasn't what I thought it was gonna be in general. I thought it was more economic and talking to people about mortgages and stuff like that, on why it's a good place. But I think the pictures were wonderful, showing what's in the town, the accessibility. So I'm gonna back out of it on any of that part, because I'm not on the same wavelength on it.
Okay. All right. So, where do we wanna leave this then, that Mark, you'll, so do we, I mean, based on what Joanne said, I mean, do we want to utilize this? You know, I mean, cause I know like a lot of it did, you know, had the kids with the baseball caps on and things of that nature, and the, you know, how professional it was, but like you'd also mentioned that there were some great shots of the town, you know, things of that nature. What's everybody else, how does everybody else feel? Cause then we can just, you know, decide to, you know, see if we could either have the professor, see if they can do what Mark's stating here, or
So this
do
is,
some-
this is the use of our community resources. This is, you know, this is a college. This is what you know, I mean, this was I forget what they even called it, but it was probably an introductory course. Maybe there's some other that are more advanced, but I think he would have suggested, I told him exactly what we were looking for, what we would use it for, and this is what was submitted. So,
Well, I think, you know, we've talked about some guidelines, for lack of a better term, of what we would like to see, without actually going through them and picking out specific clips. You know, as Joanne was saying, we want some nice, you know, scenes of the town. We want your point about attracting businesses, maybe some of John Ruta's interview to show sort of government support for this, and, you know, to try to pull out things which aren't really just students, you know, driving around town, which I wasn't really keen on, but.
right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, we could get a professional one done, but it's, you know, everything costs money,
Yeah.
so.
Sure.
I mean, I
Okay.
think it would be a nice exercise for the class to go through the videos, you know, sort of critique their own students, and then pull what they think are the best things out of them.
Yeah, and that may be something that he would embrace, you know, and say, hey, this is something I never did before, but this is fantastic. Yeah, we could use, you know, these 11 videos and see how we can, you know, make one good professional video.
Yeah, polish it up a little bit.
Yeah. I mean, and not even give them our recommendations, but, or we can do that and have one done with that, and have them put their own together. I don't know.
All right.
I think that's good.
Yeah,
Good
so
thought.
if you would be able to, would you be able to contact the professor?
Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Mark. All right, last thing would be just, I know you've already given us a number of updates, Bill.
Yeah, we talked about the mill. The planning board has been reviewing the cultivation facility out on Fish Road. It's been through the process, a lot of give and take on both sides, but it's gonna be a really good project. Jonathan Andrelevich is the principal behind that, who's not here today, but, you know, has really shepherded that through, a lot of, you know, moving parts to get it to the point where we can probably vote on it tonight. And that will, the plan is 2 phases. The first phase would be about a 50,000 square foot cultivation, which would require about up to 25 employees, with minimal traffic impacts. And the neighborhood came out and had a lot of concerns, so we've tried to work with them and the applicant to make it a good project. So I think we've you know, done a pretty good job on that. And then depending on how that goes, there would be a second phase, which would get it up to about 100,000 square feet, which would be up to another 25 employees. So at full build-out, there could be 50 employees working there, which would be a real nice economic development,
Wow,
shot in the arm for the town.
great.
So they have to go through the Cannabis Control Commission. They needed the local land use approvals, so once they have those in hand, they can go
Hmm.
ahead and complete their, get their license through the Cannabis Control Commission, and then, start construction. So that's maybe 6 months, a year away, I'm not sure, but it's moving along.
Wow, okay. Sounds good. And that would be a total of how many in the town?
We have one at Chase
Chase,
Mill,
yep.
which their retail operation, I think, is getting close to opening.
Opening, yeah.
I think they need their final inspections from the Cannabis Control Commission. Then they have a cultivation and manufacturing component, which they're working on, but I haven't seen much activity yet. I think it's more on the planning and
Right.
engineering stage at this point. And then we have a farmer who wants to do some outdoor cultivation up on Corbin Road, who probably will come back for town meeting approval for that in the spring. So, and then there's the third, or actually, there's another retail, would be the second retail project on Hall Road, that again, Jonathan is one of the principals behind. But we haven't seen any actual plans for that one yet. That's still in the developer planning stage.
Okay. Well, thank you very much.
Where's all this marijuana going? Holy cow.
Aging population, they got aches and pains.
It's a
Okay,
lot.
that's what I smelled when I was over at my place
Yeah,
on
that's it.
Schofield Avenue.
This is,
I never thought about
and who knows,
that.
maybe we could get a
Get
little
on my
piece of that
backyard.
earmarked for the Economic Development Committee. Who knows? I
Well,
think our
she-
meetings would be a little bit more interesting. Anything else?
Well,
I wanna compliment you bringing the person in who spoke with us.
yeah, that was Todd.
That was great, and I think that's what we need, is
Yeah.
to see what our opportunities are that were available,
Mm,
because
yeah.
some people will watch this, and if she were at a selectmen's meeting too, they might watch that, and you get a little more informed
Yeah.
on what you can do. And I think it kinda coordinates with trying to give you some backup on knowing that you're not a one-man show here.
Right.
Right.
That we can bring in some good people and maybe move ourselves
Yeah, no, I'm
forward.
glad. I kind of, I've been trying to get her in for a while, and she's very, but when I first met her through the bank, it was just like, it was like a thunderbolt. I just said, wow. I mean, but then again, I also knew that, she's full-time. I mean, that's her job,
Yeah.
and it is difficult for, anybody on a volunteer basis to, really devote the amount of time that's necessary to accomplish things, but just based on her experience, and she loves to be able to, like, she actually sent me, or she went over some things that she was planning to do, which I'll ask if I can share with everybody. But she talked about her brickyard project, which, if you know Killingly, they have the downtown. It's like a smaller downtown version, like a little bit smaller version of like Webster. The brick buildings and stuff, the storefronts. But behind that, she mentioned the 600 parking spots. So what she's doing is just like using like the type of like painting the parking lot area different colors, bringing art into it, like we've seen it in Webster with murals and things of that, and then making sure to help the folks that are coming in, whether it be restaurants or other shops, to make it and have like live music. She had mentioned the farmers market, which I thought was a great idea, especially if we have a lot of folks with the agricultural community around us, things like that are just ongoing things that she said, Todd, these aren't really costing a lot of money to do that. And it's just, but yeah, no, I would, I'll see if she's okay if I send that out to you, just to give an idea of like what she's planning to do. But yeah, no, I'm glad, and thank you for all the questions that you asked her and engaging. I really appreciate that, because she's just, she's a great resource. Anybody else have anything?
Yes.
Yes.
We had a question of, do EDC members need to be town residents?
Yes,
They do need to be a town resident,
they do.
yes.
Okay, so, and just for folks that, I think, Joanne, you may have, weren't here when that happened, but Jason is gonna be moving to Charlton. So we have Jason moving to Charlton, and I don't know what PJ's status is. I know she was looking to potentially relocate, you know, so.
She left Nichols.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
she did. So, we're gonna miss
She's,
you.
she's still, yep,
Yeah.
we will,
Thank you.
for sure.
My
Yeah,
goodness
absolutely.
gracious, you know? So, okay, so I guess that means we need to find some more, people
And
that
I
are
wonder if, you know, Jason would wanna be an ad hoc member, not a voting member, but just, you know, since he's got a business here in town, and, you know,
Oh,
could
yeah.
continue
Yeah.
to come to meetings.
Yeah,
and-
no, I have no problem coming.
yeah,
Oh, that'd be great.
You know, just won't be considered a full member, but, you know.
Yeah.
Well, I thought you can't leave unless you get your own replacement. I thought that's.
Whatever you say, Joanne, I'm with you. But, all right, listen, I know this has been kind of a longer meeting than normal, but I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Okay.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Good.
Ted, thank you very much.